They called him the coldest man on Wall Street, a billionaire CEO who had everything money could buy, except the love of his own son. But one quiet afternoon, inside a crowded restaurant, a black waitress did what doctors, therapists, and money never could. She made his nonverbal son speak for the very first time. And from that moment, nothing in his life would ever be the same again. Welcome to our channel. If you love stories about kindness, second chances, and miracles that touch the heart, you're in the right place. Please hit the subscribe button, turn on notifications, and tell us where you're watching from. The restaurant stood on the 42nd floor of the Wolf Tower, glass walls, marble floors, and a view so breathtaking it made the city look like a toy. It was here that Daniel Wolf, CEO of Wolf International, took his lunch every single day. He was a man whose presence filled the room before he spoke. Every button on his tailored suit, every clipped word, every cold glance, it all whispered the same message: power. Daniel had built his empire with precision. Numbers obeyed him. People feared him. But his own 5-year-old son, Eli, barely looked at him. Eli was a small, quiet boy with eyes that shimmered like a blue morning sky. He rarely smiled, rarely cried, and he never, ever, spoke. He was diagnosed with nonverbal autism at age 3, and since then Daniel's world had been divided into two: the one where he ruled everything, and the one where he was helpless. No matter how many doctors he paid, how many speech therapists he hired, nothing broke through. So he did what powerful men do when faced with things they can't control. He distanced himself. He told himself love was useless if it didn't fix things. But deep down, there was a father still waiting to hear his son say one word, even just Dad. That afternoon, the restaurant buzzed with the rhythm of lunchtime chatter. Silverware clinked, suits whispered about deals, and the city's heartbeat pulsed below. In the middle of it all, Rachel Angelique walked gracefully between tables with a notepad in one hand and calmness in the other. She had only been working there for 2 weeks. Her uniform was simple, her smile warm but tired, the kind of tired that comes from carrying too much hope. Rachel had grown up in a small town in Georgia. Life hadn't been kind, but it had made her gentle. Her younger sister was sick, and every paycheck Rachel earned went toward hospital bills. But even through exhaustion, she carried light, a quiet peace that made people feel safe without knowing why. When she reached Daniel's table, she noticed him typing furiously on his phone while his son sat beside him, spinning a red toy car in circles. "Good afternoon, sir," she said softly. "What can I get you and your little man today?" Daniel didn't look up. "Salmon, grilled. No sauce. He won't eat anything but fries." Rachel nodded, then turned to Eli. "Hey, buddy," she said gently. "That car looks fast. Does it ever crash?" Eli didn't respond. The car kept spinning. Daniel sighed. "He doesn't talk," he muttered. "Don't waste your time." Rachel didn't argue. She just smiled kindly and said, "That's okay. I talk enough for both of us." Something about the way she said it, so patient, so unbothered, made Daniel glance up for the first time. There was no pity in her eyes, just understanding. When Rachel brought their food, Daniel was on another phone call. His voice was sharp, irritated, the sound of a man used to control. She set the plate down, then crouched beside Eli. "Hey, champ," she whispered. "Want to see something cool?" She pulled a small napkin from her pocket and began folding it. 1 crease, 2 creases, 3. Within seconds, it turned into a tiny paper bird. Eli's spinning slowed. His fingers froze mid-motion. His eyes lifted, curious. Rachel balanced the bird on the table and blew softly. The wings fluttered. "See? It's flying," she said. For the first time, Eli smiled. It was small, fleeting, but real. Daniel looked up, startled. He had never seen that smile before. Rachel winked at Eli. "You're a good listener, aren't you?" she said. "You don't have to talk to be heard." Something about that line settled in Daniel's chest. He couldn't explain it, but it stung, the truth of it. The next day, Daniel came again. Same table, same silence. But this time, he asked for Rachel by name. When she approached, Eli lit up in quiet recognition. He handed her the toy car without being asked, a small gesture, but for Daniel, it was monumental. Rachel accepted it with both hands. "Thank you, sweetheart," she said. "You know, this car reminds me of the sun. It just keeps going." Eli tilted his head, eyes locked on her. His fingers tapped against the glass table, the same rhythm she had used yesterday while folding the napkin. Rachel began to hum, a soft, steady tune, low enough for Eli to feel rather than hear. And just like that, he stilled. His breathing synced with hers. His world seemed to open. Daniel watched silently, or washing over him. Rachel looked up at him and said gently, "He doesn't need fixing, Mr. Wolf. He needs someone who listens." Daniel had no reply. He felt as though she had just read his soul. A week later, Daniel returned again, not out of habit, but out of hope. He brought Eli's favorite toy, sat in the same seat, and waited for Rachel. When she arrived, Eli greeted her with a quiet clap, something he had never done before. Rachel beamed. "You remembered me," she said. "Guess what? I brought you something." She pulled out a small picture book, pages filled with bright colors and simple words. They sat side by side, flipping through the pages: car, tree, sun, bird. When they reached the page with a yellow circle, Rachel pointed. "Sun," she said. "That's the sun. Warm, bright, always watching." Eli stared at the picture for a long time. Then, softly, almost like a breath, he whispered, "Sunday." Rachel froze. Daniel's eyes widened. For a moment, no one breathed. "Say that again," Rachel whispered, tears welling up. "Sun," Eli said again, louder this time, smiling. Daniel's heart shattered in the most beautiful way. His son's asterisk first word dot asterisk. He dropped his phone, reached across the table, and pulled Eli into his arms, tears streaming down his face. He looked up at Rachel, voice trembling. "How did you do that?" Rachel smiled through tears. "I didn't, sir. He just needed to feel safe enough to shine." From that day, everything changed. Daniel began spending less time in boardrooms and more time at the restaurant. Not because he needed to eat, but because Eli needed Rachel. She taught Daniel things no book ever could. She showed him how to sit on the floor and play with cars instead of checking emails. How to hum a tune when Eli felt anxious. How to breathe slower, speak softer, love quieter. And little by little, Daniel began to change. The arrogance that once defined him gave way to gratitude. He even started volunteering at an autism center, something no one in his circle would have believed. One evening, after closing, Daniel approached Rachel as she wiped down the tables. "I want to hire you," he said. "Not as a waitress, as Eli's caretaker. Whatever salary you want, it's yours." Rachel smiled kindly. "Thank you, Mr. Wolf, but I can't. He doesn't need a caretaker. He needs his dad." Those words hit deeper than any boardroom negotiation. Daniel nodded slowly. "Then, can you teach me to be that?" Rachel placed a hand over his and said softly, "Start by being patient with yourself." Months passed. Eli was now speaking small words: sun, car, mama, bird. His voice was gentle but clear, like music Daniel never thought he'd hear. The billionaire who once commanded thousands of employees now knelt every morning to tie his son's shoes and listen to his humming. Rachel still visited occasionally, and every time she did, she found Daniel more human than before. He smiled more, laughed more, lived more. One summer afternoon, Daniel invited her to a charity gala, not for investors, but for children with autism. He stood on stage in front of hundreds and spoke from the heart. "Sometimes," he said, voice breaking, "it takes a stranger to remind us what love really means. For years I tried to buy miracles, but I learned that miracles don't come from money, they come from kindness." He looked down at Eli sitting beside Rachel in the front row, a small boy smiling proudly, clutching a paper sun. After the speech, Daniel found Rachel backstage. "I still don't know how to thank you," he said quietly. Rachel smiled. "You already did. You became the father he needed." Daniel looked out the window toward the city, the same city he once ruled with pride. Now, he ruled nothing. Yet for the first time, he felt rich. Because love had done what wealth never could. It had healed. He turned back to Rachel and said, "You changed our lives forever." Rachel shook her head. "No, Mr. Wolf. He changed yours. I just reminded you where to look." That night, Daniel tucked Eli into bed. The boy looked up at him and whispered, "Night, Daddy." Daniel froze. His son had never called him that before. He kissed his forehead, tears slipping down his cheek. "Good night, my little son." Outside, the city lights sparkled against the glass walls of Wolf Tower, but inside, one small light burned brighter than them all. The light of a father's love, reignited by a stranger's kindness. If this story touched your heart, please hit like, subscribe, and tell us where you're watching from. Remember, sometimes the smallest act of kindness can change your life forever.